Imagine a treasure so sacred that it was hidden at the edge of the world, guarded by a dragon that never slept and protected by goddesses who served the gods themselves. Now, imagine being ordered to steal it. That was the task given to Heracles, the greatest hero of Greek mythology, as part of his 12 labours. But this time, brute strength alone would not be enough. To claim the legendary golden apples of the Hesperides, Heracles would have to outthink gods, outmatch titans, and even hold up the heavens themselves. By now, Heracles had already completed 11 of his 12 labours. He had slain the Nemean lion, defeated the Lernaean hydra, captured Cerberus from the underworld and survived trials that no mortal should have endured. But his 12th and final labour would be the hardest of all. King Eurystheus, determined to see Heracles fail, ordered him to steal the golden apples of the Hesperides, a set of divine fruits that granted immortality to those who ate them. These apples belonged to the gods themselves, sacred to Hera, and were kept in a hidden garden far beyond the known world, guarded by the Hesperides, nymphs who protected the grove. Ladon, a 100-headed dragon that never slept. No mortal had ever set foot in this garden and lived. And now Heracles had to find it, infiltrate it, and escape with the treasure of the gods. There was just one problem. No one knew exactly where the garden of the Hesperides was. Heracles travelled across the ancient world, searching for answers. He journeyed through Greece, Libya, and Egypt, questioning kings, oracles, and even the gods themselves. But every lead brought only dead ends, until he encountered Nereus, the ancient sea god. Nereus was a shapeshifter, capable of turning into anything, a lion, a serpent, even water itself. But Heracles had learned one thing over his past labours. Strength alone was not enough. He had to be relentless. So, when Nereus transformed, Heracles refused to let go. No matter what shape the god took, Heracles held on tighter until finally Nereus surrendered and revealed the truth. The garden lies at the farthest edge of the world, beyond the lands of men, where even the gods seldom tread. The journey had only just begun. As Heracles reached the western edge of the world, he encountered Atlas, a titan condemned to hold up the heavens for eternity. Atlas was no friend of the gods. He had fought against them in the Titanomachy and lost, doomed to bear the weight of the sky forever. As Heracles reached the western edge of the world, he encountered Atlas, a titan condemned to hold up the heavens for eternity. Atlas was no friend of the gods. He had fought against them in the Titanomachy and lost, doomed to bear the weight of the sky forever. But Atlas knew something Heracles needed: the location of the garden of the Hesperides. Seeing an opportunity, Heracles proposed a deal. But Atlas knew something Heracles needed: the location of the garden of the Hesperides. Seeing an opportunity, Heracles proposed a deal. "Tell me where the apples are, and I will hold the sky for you." Atlas laughed. After all, no mortal could possibly bear the weight of the heavens. But when Heracles stepped forward and placed his hands beneath the celestial dome, the impossible happened. With all his strength, he lifted the sky onto his shoulders. For the first time in ages, Atlas was free. And so the Titan set off for the garden. Time passed. The weight of the sky was unbearable, even for Heracles. His muscles trembled, but he refused to falter. Finally, Atlas returned, holding the golden apples in his massive hands. But instead of handing them over, he grinned and said, "You know, I think I'll take these apples to Eurystheus myself. After all, I'm free now. Why would I go back under that sky?" Heracles had been betrayed, but the hero was no fool. He nodded, pretending to agree, and said, "That sounds fair, but could you hold the sky for just a moment while I adjust my cloak?" Atlas, believing himself victorious, took back the burden, and in that moment, Heracles grabbed the apples and walked away, leaving Atlas trapped once again beneath the weight of the heavens. The Titan roared in fury, but there was nothing he could do. Heracles had outwitted a god. With the golden apples of the Hesperides in hand, Heracles made his way back to King Eurystheus. With the golden apples of the Hesperides in hand, Heracles made his way back to King Eurystheus. The cowardly king, who had spent years trying to break Heracles, now stood face to face with his greatest achievement. The cowardly king, who had spent years trying to break Heracles, now stood face to face with his greatest achievement. But there was one final twist. The apples belonged to the gods, and no mortal could keep them. The apples belonged to the gods, and no mortal could keep them. At the command of Athena, Heracles returned the apples to the gods of Olympus, ensuring that no human could ever claim their power. And so, his final labor was complete. Heracles had endured 12 impossible tasks, fought monsters, defied death, and even held up the sky itself. He had faced gods and titans, warriors and beasts, and had emerged not just as a hero, but as a legend. Though his labors were finished, his story was far from over. The wrath of Hera still loomed, and fate had more trials in store for him. But that is a tale for another day. If you enjoyed this legendary tale of Heracles, make sure to like, subscribe and comment which myth you'd like to hear next. Should we cover the rest of his journey, or dive into the stories of other great heroes? Let me know.